Hey guys, Game Light Show here, and what you're seeing before you is a little bit of a gameplay of Magic the Gathering that I've done in the past few years. I've played a lot of Magic the Gathering, even up until this point, both in person as well as just kind of on the arena when it first came out and everything. What you're seeing before you is a black deck that I played back when Strixhaven was still in their standard mode, and it was a fun little enchantment deck where everything kind of revolved around my little Edelin, or however you call them, as I have called them all sorts of different things throughout the ages, but we're not going to worry about that. For the most part, it all revolves around all the different types of enchantments, as well as having things on their side die with enchantments. As long as an enchantment goes into the graveyard, whether it be something like Mire's Grasp or Dead Weight, even some other enchantments that allow when the creature dies to return to my side of the field works as well. As long as those type of enchantments that belong to me go into the graveyard, I get to draw a card, which means that I can just continue to kind of like build myself up as I kill things off of the board. Now, the problem with this is that you have decks like Pests, as well as other types of tokens deck, where that strategy sort of starts becoming less viable, as you have a lot of different things on the field that you have to get rid of, but you don't have enough enchantments to actually do it. But to circumvent this, I have added a couple of cards that allow me to heal when attacked with tokens or creatures that have, like, 1/1 attacks and toughness. And I also have ways of being able to heal myself as well as deal damage to the opponent. That's way I'm not just relying on constantly killing things. I can just try to, as they say, stall out my opponent, which more often than not truly works in my advantage. As you can see here, I'm trying to figure out what's my best course of play in regards of how to deal with my opponent's deck. I'm thinking of just like killing things off, just like taking out his like big unit and just, letting the game play out to the point where I don't actually have to worry about him like attacking me, because he would just kill himself with all of his low power creature. But then I thought to myself, I don't necessarily have to kill it. I just have to weaken it enough to the point to where it can't capitalize off of me. Right there you see that my little sideboard app that I was using for a while completely went out on me, so that sucks. But yeah, so he decides to pop off, draw some cards, gain some health, bring back some tokens, but he loses a lot of life. He learns some things, he gets an exile card, which I figured he was going to exile my enchantment creature here that allows me to draw cards when people with enchantments die. So I decided to play my Raven here that basically exiles things out of my graveyard, enchantments, to make me build 2/2 zombie tokens. In order to have it be like, hey, you don't want to exile this card, you want to exile the other card. Look at that, I'm making tokens. But the funny part about this is that he does something very unpractical. Instead, he decided to just exile one of my enchantments that allows me to heal and deal damage to him. Which, while honestly is just kind of like annoying, it wasn't the worst option he could go for. Basically, he just made his inevitable death a little bit longer. But for the most part, it's just kind of simple, straightforward. Keep attacking, stack up enchantments. When you can, exile them from the graveyard to make more tokens, and use them to kill off other creatures. And once those enchantments end up in the graveyard, exile those, make more tokens, play more enchantments, kill off things, they go into the graveyard, draw a card, exile them, get a token. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward basis of everything. Even when things die like that, you don't really have any return cards, like return creature card from the graveyard, because you're basically wanting to exile your enchantments before your opponent ever gets the chance to exile them yourself. Here, I try to get rid of one of his cards that would definitely pose a problem for me in the future if it ever got too strong or got anything with trample. But since he's playing a green and black deck, he has a card to make it indestructible, to prevent me from actually getting rid of it. So I decided to throw a little bit of a sacrifice card on there, because my whole thing is that he's going to run out of pester tokens eventually, especially if he doesn't get anything to make more of them. So I figured I'd just get started. He can gain 1 life every start of his turn, but eventually he's going to run out of those pester tokens and have to start getting rid of actual creatures on his field. And now that I've also got my other Raven out, well, I don't think it was a Raven, I think it was a Harpy. My other Harpy out here, I can easily just attack him from the air, continue to make more tokens as things die and fall off. Plus, I enchant it, give it another +2, make it a 4/1, and just attack from the air, and just slowly whittle him down. If he chooses not to attack with his full horde, he'll eventually die a slow death. If he chooses to attack with his full horde, he's going to die a very ugly death and also just not kill me in the process, seeing as I have way more health than any of his creatures can do at the current moment. So its only best deal is to basically try to ramp that creature up far enough to actually kill me in one tap. But unfortunately, he realizes he's not going to be able to, and he surrenders. Now, the second game is using the same type of deck as the first one. This one is going up against a little bit of a difficult deck for me, mainly because I always have had problems with dealing with card types that I don't really like, so to say. Said card types being, well, you'll. So, as you can probably see, Landfall was one of my banes of existence, on top of that being flying, which is still problematic to me today, because I often forget to make sure that my deck can deal with flying creatures, let alone making sure that somebody can't ramp up against me hard enough to do nothing but have ramp flying creatures. So, I've had a couple of problems here and there. I especially hate blue decks, but I also hate white and green, mainly for white being their flying, and green being their ways of overpowering my ideas at time. I clearly know he has a landfall deck, which means that he's going to be playing off a lot of his lands, as well as just like buffing his cards to the 9 hells and back. Now, I'm not entirely worried, because I figured if I can just like get enough going, as well as possibly steal off some of his cards, I might be able to survive this if he doesn't do any type of funny business, so to say. Now, I honestly cannot read my opponents. I really wish I could say that, like, hey, yeah, I know exactly what's going through his mind, I know what cards he has in his hand and everything like that. But in all honesty, I don't. And for the most part, I'm just kind of like, okay, how do I stall the game and keep myself alive at the same time so I can start just, like, grabbing up a bunch of stuff so I can start killing off some of his beefier cards, right? Because I know, like, those 2 cards aren't going to be, like, his, like, magnum opus. Though, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't think that these 2 Illidan's would not be my magnus opus. But, unfortunately, they are. Because aside from the Harpy, these 2 cards are the only ones that really do a lot for me. I'm not sure when I began to, like, stop worrying about my health as much, because as I have played throughout the years, I've reached a point to where I just kind of don't care about where my health is, as long as it's not kill. So, for the most part, I treat my health as another source of resource, where I just see it as another card on the field. Like, I see it as, like, a blocker in itself. So, as long as I know that it's not going to beat the toughness of my health, I'm perfectly fine with taking damage, up until a point where I'm just kind of like, okay, so this is where I am right now. I need to start, planning out this sort of thing. And so here I'm thinking of taking that card by killing off the Skeletorium and killing off that, having it come back to my side, draw a card, and honestly, looking at everything, I would have been better off playing the Harpy on top of the Wither Crown in order to, one, get a token on the field, two, put the Wither Crown on the landfall creature. That's way it would have 0 attack, and he would have one less thing to really force himself onto me with. But then again, seeing as it now, having 3 life come back at me and getting rid of 3, but also losing 6, all in all, I only lose 9 health here, which is better than the 12 that it normally would do, so... But if I did it the other way, I would still only lose 6 instead of the 9, so... Hindsight isn't always 20/20. Unfortunately. Yep. I'm not going to block because I'm perfectly fine. I'm not in kill range. Even if he has an, growth or anything like that, as you can see, I would still be perfectly fine. Because I know my deck a little bit better than that. And so, first off, we're going to start killing off things. And we're going to bring a little Buggy Boo over here to our side. We're going to draw 2 cards. We're going to give my card Trample. We're going to throw in the Heart... Whoa. Okay, now we're throwing in the Wither Crown. Yeah, that does nothing. That kills. Which gives me another 2 cards, looking for that land drop. And, if I want to kill off the other land... Well, why? I guess because it doesn't really kill, it just makes him do 1 damage every time. But in this way, I technically get to live a little bit longer. And I get the 2 health, goes to his turn, get another health, he takes more damage. If he attacks me, I lose a health, and I take 2 damage, which would still keep me in life range. Even at 5, it's still perfectly fine. He plays another card of the Bane of my existence, because that card can get hexproof, which makes things a lot harder. But what he doesn't know is that I have a way of just stealing that card fucking off of him, which I plan to do fucking immediately. Where I give him the ultimatum. I'm just like, hey, so, that card isn't going to survive forever. And when it dies, it's coming to me. My opponent looks at his situation. He doesn't falter for a while, which is just the most hilarious thing. Because I'm fairly sure he has some ways of destroying enchantments. Because it is a green deck. But during this era, I don't really think a lot of people were thinking about enchantments. They were thinking about the ways of just, like, making creatures a lot more stronger than they were. I think this was a little bit either after or during the times of, like, mutation decks as well, which also hated, absolutely fucking hated. But I really had to learn how to, like, read off of my opponents a lot, or else I would just absolutely fucking eat it. So, I feel like I really come a long way from where I started in this to today. Oh, yep. Speaking of mutation. Speaking of mutation. Always a problem. Always a problem. Now, here's the thing, right? On his next turn, he still has to sacrifice a creature. I'm perfectly fine. I'm still going to live with 1 health. But he has to sacrifice a creature on the start of his turn. So that mutation creature, or the creature that he has right now, isn't going to live. Even more fucking on top of that, I'm going to start building up my 2 creatures on the field that I wouldn't mind absolutely fucking dying. So, you know, I'm just like, hey, I got 5, and I'm going to kill you. How will you respond? And he goes, well, I guess I'll block it. I'm like, okay, cool. You're an idiot. Draw 2 more cards, tell him good game. Play another land drop. Let it go to his turn, get 1 life. Make a token. Goes to his turn. Sacrifices the only card on his hand. It comes to my side of the field. And we have the scoop? Or will he just let me kill him? There's the good game, the response, and we have the scoop. Alright, and so this is where we are going to end off the video. Nothing too grand, nothing too much. For the next time, I plan to play a little bit more of the current era, as well as showing off some of the other things that I have in the works as well, on top of all of my other Magic the Gathering decks right now. And if you guys like what you see, leave a like, subscribe if you want to, because if you do, you'll be part of the Wolf Army.